Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin, I'd love to know where you're joining me from. Drop your city in the comments, and also subscribe to this channel. Now, let me take you into this story. I walked into the boardroom with a folder in my hand and confidence that lasted exactly 4 seconds. The projector screen was black. My presentation files were gone. My supervisor, Marcus, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "You had one job and you couldn't even show up prepared." The clients shifted in their seats. My teammates stared at their phones. The air pressed down on me like a weight I couldn't lift. I'd spent 2 weeks on this presentation. 2 weeks of late nights, revised drafts, triple-checked data. And now, standing in front of 12 people, I had nothing to show. My stomach twisted. Someone coughed. Another person whispered something I couldn't quite hear, but I heard the quiet laughter from the corner. Soft, cruel, deliberate. They wanted me to break right there. I felt my hands shake. My throat tightened. But I didn't cry. I wouldn't give them that. The laughter came from Andrea and Kyle, 2 coworkers who'd been with the company almost as long as I had. They sat near the back, phones still in their hands, smirking like they'd just won a bet. Andrea covered her mouth, pretending to hide her amusement. Kyle didn't even bother. He leaned over and whispered something to her, and she snorted softly. The client representative, a woman in a gray blazer, glanced at them, then back at me. Her expression was neutral, but I could feel the judgment. My supervisor tapped his pen against the table. The sound echoed in the silence. I stood there, frozen, holding my useless folder like it might somehow save me. It didn't. My mind raced. Where were the files? I uploaded them last night. I checked them twice. They were perfect, but now they were corrupted. The backup folder was empty, and the only people with access to the shared drive sat right across from me. I forced myself to smile, not a real smile, the kind that hides everything burning underneath. I apologized calmly, my voice steadier than I expected. I pulled up the backup notes from memory and started speaking without slides. I walked them through the campaign strategy, the target demographics, the projected ROI. My words came out clear, professional, like I'd rehearsed this exact disaster. The clients nodded occasionally. Marcus stared at me with something between surprise and annoyance. Andrea and Kyle stopped smirking, but the damage was done. Everyone had seen me stumble. Everyone had heard Marcus call me unprepared, and no matter how well I recovered, that image would stick. When I finished, the room stayed quiet for a moment. Then the client representative said, "Thank you for that, we'll be in touch." Her tone was polite but distant. I knew what that meant. I'm a senior marketing associate, 32 years old. First one in, last one out most nights. I'd been at the firm for 5 years, pouring everything into campaigns that other people took credit for. I wasn't the loudest voice in meetings. I wasn't the one who knew how to charm executives over lunch. But I was consistent, reliable, the person who fixed problems quietly while everyone else panicked. I'd saved 3 major accounts in the past 2 years. I'd rewritten proposals at midnight. I'd covered for teammates who missed deadlines, and I never complained. I thought that mattered. I thought hard work spoke for itself. But in an office where people smiled with knives behind their backs, hard work just made you a target. Because when you're good at what you do, people start to feel threatened. And when they feel threatened, they stop playing fair. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. Our office was beautiful on the surface. Modern furniture, glass walls, motivational posters about teamwork. But underneath, it was a battlefield. Compliments came with conditions. Friendships ended over promotions. People congratulated you to your face and undermined you in emails. I'd watched it happen to others. Watched talented people get pushed out by politics and gossip. But I thought if I stayed quiet, stayed focused, I'd be safe. I was wrong. Marcus had been my supervisor for 3 years. He was good at his job, but better at taking credit. He'd built his reputation on other people's work, and everyone knew it. Andrea and Kyle were his favorites. They laughed at his jokes, defended his decisions, and somehow always ended up on the easy projects. I got the hard ones, the ones no one else wanted, the ones that required late nights and constant revisions, and I did them, every single time. The files I uploaded last night were perfect. I knew because I checked them at 11 p.m. before I left the office. Every slide was formatted correctly. Every chart was labeled. Every typo was fixed. I even tested the file on 3 different computers to make sure it would load properly. But this morning, when I opened the shared drive, the file was corrupted. The backup folder I'd created, empty. Someone had deleted it. and the only people with editing access to that folder were Marcus, Andrea, Kyle, and me. I sat at my desk after the meeting, staring at the screen, piecing it together. The access logs showed someone had opened the folder at 6:30 this morning, an hour before I arrived, an hour before the meeting. I scrolled through the history. The username wasn't mine. It was Kyle's. He deleted my backup and corrupted the main file, on purpose. When the meeting ended, Marcus sighed dramatically. He stood up, straightened his tie, and said loud enough for the clients to hear, "Let's make sure next time she gets a little help." His tone was condescending, like I was a child who needed supervision. The clients nodded politely and gathered their things. Andrea smiled sweetly at them as they left. Kyle held the door open, playing the role of the helpful colleague. I stood there, watching them perform, watching them pretend they hadn't just destroyed me. One of the clients glanced back at me before leaving. Her expression was sympathetic, but she didn't say anything. What could she say? She didn't know the truth. She only knew what she'd seen. And what she'd seen was me failing in front of everyone. As the door closed behind them, Marcus turned to me. "We'll debrief later," he said. Then he walked out, Andrea and Kyle following close behind. I heard them laughing in the hallway, not even trying to hide it anymore. I walked back to my desk slowly. My legs felt heavy. My chest burned with something I couldn't name yet. Anger. Humiliation? Both. I passed coworkers who avoided eye contact. Some whispered as I walked by. Others pretended to be busy with their screens. No one asked if I was okay. No one offered sympathy. In an office like this, failure was contagious. No one wanted to stand too close to it. I sat down at my desk and opened my email. 43 unread messages. Most of them were routine, but one caught my attention. It was from Marcus, sent 20 minutes ago. Subject line, team update. I opened it. It was a group email to the entire marketing department explaining that the client presentation didn't go as planned and that we'll need to regroup and reassess moving forward. He didn't mention my name. He didn't have to. Everyone knew. I got up and walked to the bathroom. My reflection stared back at me in the mirror. I looked tired. My eyes were red, but I hadn't cried. My jaw was tight. My hands gripped the edge of the sink. I should have felt defeated. I should have wanted to quit. But standing there looking at myself, something shifted. The hurt started to harden into something sharper, something colder. I whispered to the mirror, "So that's how it's going to be." My voice sounded different, calmer, more focused. They'd humiliated me in front of clients. They'd sabotaged my work. They'd laughed about it. And they thought I'd just accept it. They thought I'd quietly fade into the background, too embarrassed to fight back. They were wrong. I washed my hands, dried them slowly, and walked back to my desk. I didn't feel hurt anymore. I felt awake. The moment I stopped feeling sorry for myself, my mind started working differently. I wasn't thinking about what had happened. I was thinking about what came next. They'd made a mistake. A big one. They'd underestimated me. They thought I was weak because I was quiet. They thought I was harmless because I didn't play their games. But quiet doesn't mean powerless. And kindness isn't the same as weakness. I opened my laptop and started going through files, not the corrupted ones. The backups I'd saved on my personal drive. The ones they didn't know existed. I'd learned a long time ago to keep copies of everything. Not because I expected sabotage, just because I was careful. Now that caution was about to save me. I smiled. Not the fake smile I'd worn in the boardroom. A real one. The kind that promises consequences. They thought they'd buried me. They had no idea I was already digging my way out. I spent the next 2 hours at my desk, copying everything. Every email, every file, every edit log. Every access record from the shared drive. I documented who had opened what and when. I screenshotted timestamps. I downloaded the entire history of the project folder, including the deleted files Kyle thought were gone forever. They weren't. The system kept backups for 30 days. He didn't know that. While Marcus, Andrea, and Kyle celebrated in the break room, I was building a case. Not out of anger, out of precision. I didn't slam my keyboard. I didn't curse under my breath. I worked quietly, methodically, the same way I always did, just with a different goal. By the time I finished, I had a folder with 47 files. Proof. Undeniable, time-stamped, traceable proof. And I knew exactly who needed to see it. I thought about all the times I'd helped them. The times Andrea asked me to rewrite her proposals because hers weren't quite right. The times Kyle begged me to cover his reports when he was too hungover to finish them on time. The times Marcus took credit for campaigns I'd built from scratch while I stayed silent because I didn't want to cause drama. I'd chosen to be kind. I'd chosen to be the person who helped without expecting anything back, and they'd taken that kindness and turned it into a weapon. Every favor I'd done for them had made them bolder. Every time I didn't complain, they thought I wouldn't fight. They were right about one thing: I wouldn't fight dirty, but I would fight smart, and smart was so much worse for them. I left the office without saying a word. I didn't stop by Marcus's desk. I didn't acknowledge Andrea or Kyle. I just grabbed my bag and walked out. The sun was setting as I drove home. The city lights blurred past my window. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, not from fear, from focus. My mind was racing, but not in a panicked way, in a clear, organized way. I wasn't planning revenge out of spite. I was planning justice out of necessity. There's a difference. Revenge is messy, emotional, loud. Justice is quiet, calculated, inevitable. And justice was exactly what they were about to get. I turned on the radio. A song I didn't recognize played softly. I didn't really hear it. I was too busy planning. At a red light, I made a call. The regional director, Mr. Caldwell, had an assistant named Vanessa. I'd worked with her on a charity campaign last quarter. We'd spent 2 weeks coordinating donations and volunteers. She was sharp, organized, and most importantly, she trusted me. The phone rang twice before she picked up. "Hey, it's me," I said. "I need to talk to you about something Mr. Caldwell needs to see before the company dinner tonight." There was a pause. Then, "What is it?" "Can't explain over the phone," I said. "But it's important. It's about the client meeting this morning." Another pause. Then, "Send it to my personal email. I'll make sure he sees it before dinner." "Thank you," I said. She hung up. I exhaled slowly. The light turned green, and I drove the rest of the way home with a plan forming in my mind. By the time I got home, my living room looked like a detective's office. Printouts covered the coffee table. Emails, access logs, screenshots, everything organized by date and time. I laid it all out in front of me, checking every detail twice. The timeline was clear. At 6:30 this morning, Kyle accessed the shared drive. He opened my presentation file. He corrupted it. Then he deleted the backup folder. 30 minutes later, Andrea accessed the same drive. She didn't edit anything. She just checked to make sure the sabotage had worked. At 7:15, Marcus sent an email to the clients confirming the meeting time. He knew. He had to know. And he let it happen. This wasn't just Kyle being petty. This was coordinated, planned. And that made it so much worse. But it also made my case so much stronger. I opened my laptop and rebuilt the presentation from scratch. Not the corrupted version. A new one, better than the original. I added updated data, clearer visuals, sharper messaging. I made it flawless. Then I wrote an email, short, professional, no accusations, no drama, just facts. "Hi, Mr. Caldwell, I realized the slides you saw this morning weren't the final version. There was an issue with the shared drive. Attaching the correct file for your review before tonight's dinner. Best regards." I attached the presentation. I attached the access logs. I attached everything. Then I hovered my cursor over the send button. My finger trembled for just a second. Then I clicked. The email whooshed into the void. There was no going back now. I closed my laptop and sat back on the couch. My heart pounded. But I felt calm, calmer than I had all day. That evening, I arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes late on purpose. I wanted them settled, comfortable, unsuspecting. The restaurant was upscale, white tablecloths, dim lighting, soft jazz playing in the background. Marcus, Andrea, and Kyle were already there, laughing too loudly, toasting with wine glasses. They didn't notice me walk in, or maybe they did and chose not to acknowledge me. Either way, I didn't care. I found a seat at the far end of the table, away from them. A server handed me a menu. I ordered water. My stomach was too tight to eat. I watched them. Marcus told a story, gesturing wildly. Andrea laughed at all the right moments. Kyle nodded along, playing the loyal teammate. They looked so confident, so sure they'd won. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Mr. Caldwell arrived 10 minutes later. He was a tall man in his 50s, gray hair, sharp suit, the kind of presence that made everyone sit up straighter. He walked to the head of the table and the room quieted. "Good evening, everyone," he said. His voice was calm but commanding. "Before we get started, I want to address something." My heart skipped. Marcus straightened his tie. Andrea's smile faltered slightly. Kyle glanced at me, then quickly looked away. Mr. Caldwell pulled out his tablet. "I just reviewed the updated presentation for the client meeting this morning," he said. He looked directly at me. "Incredible work." The table went silent. Every head turned toward me. Marcus's face froze. Andrea's mouth opened slightly. Kyle stared at his plate. Mr. Caldwell continued. The level of detail, the clarity, the data analysis. This is exactly what we needed. If not for this, we could have lost the account. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just nodded politely and said, "Thank you, I just wanted to make sure the right files were seen." Marcus forced a laugh. "Oh yes, we had a little technical issue this morning, but we're glad it worked out." Mr. Caldwell looked at him. "Technical issue? Just a glitch with the shared drive," Marcus said quickly. "Nothing major." Mr. Caldwell's expression didn't change. "Interesting, because the access logs show the files were deliberately corrupted and deleted." The table went completely still. Marcus's face drained of color. Andrea looked down. Kyle shifted in his seat. "I'll be reviewing this further on Monday," Mr. Caldwell said. "But for now, I wanted to personally thank you for your professionalism." He raised his glass toward me. No one else moved. I lifted my water glass slightly. "Just doing my job," I said. Dinner continued in painful silence. The server brought appetizers, but no one really ate. Marcus picked at his food. Andrea sipped her wine too quickly. Kyle excused himself to the bathroom twice. I ate slowly, calmly, savoring every bite, not because the food was good, because the moment was perfect. Every glance they shot my way burned with realization. Every word they whispered to each other was laced with panic. They'd wanted me humiliated. Now they were the ones choking on humiliation with every forkful. Mr. Caldwell made small talk with other team members. He didn't mention the presentation again. He didn't have to. The damage was done, and everyone at that table knew it. I finished my meal, wiped my mouth with the napkin, and excused myself early. "Thank you for dinner," I said to Mr. Caldwell. He nodded. "Have a good evening." I didn't say goodbye to anyone else. As I walked toward the exit, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. Kyle stood there, hands in his pockets, jaw tight. "You planned this," he said. His voice was low, bitter. I looked at him for a long moment. Calm, steady. "No," I said. "You did, I just finished it." He opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard him mutter something under his breath. I didn't care. I pushed open the restaurant door and stepped into the cool night air. The city hummed around me. Cars passed. People laughed on the sidewalk. Life continued, indifferent to the small war I'd just won. I walked to my car, got in, and sat there for a moment. My hands rested on the steering wheel. My breathing was steady. I'd done it. I'd turned their trap into my greatest win. I drove home slowly, taking the long route. The city lights reflected off the windshield, blurring into soft streaks of color. I thought about the look on Marcus's face when Mr. Caldwell mentioned the access logs. The way Andrea's hands shook when she reached for her wine glass. The panic in Kyle's eyes when he realized I'd outplayed them. It felt good, not in a cruel way, in a just way. They'd tried to destroy me, and instead they'd handed me everything I needed to destroy them. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel conflicted. I felt clear. For the first time in 5 years, I felt like I'd stood up for myself, not with anger, not with drama, with evidence, with strategy, with precision. Revenge didn't need to be loud. Sometimes justice whispered, and that whisper echoed longer than any scream. When I got home, I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the couch. The printouts were still scattered across the coffee table. I gathered them slowly, stacking them neatly. I didn't need them anymore, but I kept them just in case. My phone buzzed, a text from Vanessa. "Mr. Caldwell wants to meet with you Monday morning, 9 a.m., his office." I stared at the message for a moment, then I typed back, "I'll be there." Another buzz, this time from an unknown number. I opened it. "You're going to regret this." No name, but I knew who it was. I didn't respond. I blocked the number and set my phone down. Threats didn't scare me anymore. They'd already done their worst, and I'd survived. No, I'd won. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. No tossing, no nightmares, just deep, dreamless sleep. When I woke up Saturday morning, sunlight streamed through my bedroom window. I made coffee. I sat on my balcony and watched the city wake up. People walked their dogs. Joggers passed by. The world moved forward, and so did I. I thought about Monday, about the meeting with Mr. Caldwell, about what would happen to Marcus, Andrea, and Kyle. Part of me wondered if I should feel bad, if I should feel guilty for what was coming, but I didn't. They'd made their choices. They'd set the trap. They'd laughed when they thought I'd fallen into it. All I did was walk around it, and now they were the ones stuck inside. I sipped my coffee and smiled, not a bitter smile, a peaceful one. Justice wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was quiet, patient, inevitable. By Monday morning, HR would have every file I'd printed, every email, every access log, every piece of evidence. And by the end of the week, some desks would be empty. I didn't know exactly what would happen. I didn't need to. I'd done my part. I'd told the truth. I'd shown the proof. The rest was out of my hands, but I knew one thing for certain. They thought they'd buried me in failure. They thought they'd embarrassed me so badly I'd never recover. Instead, they'd given me the push I needed to finally stop being silent, to stop letting people walk over me, to stop confusing kindness with weakness. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was just done. Done being the person everyone took advantage of. Done being the one who stayed quiet while others took credit. Done playing fair in a game that was rigged from the start. They'd wanted to see me fail. Instead, they'd watched me rise. And that, I realized, was the sweetest victory of all.